What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest has a true passion for guiding the next generation of designers. She's led a variety of interior design projects over her 16-plus year career. She's a seasoned veteran in the design and development of international hotel projects. She is a principal, the director of hospitality interior design at the HOK New York Studio. Ladies and gentlemen, Dina Lamanna. Welcome, Dina.
Thanks, Dan. Lovely to be here.
What's Lamanna with you?
My dad would love that joke.
See, I'm just full of dad jokes, so thank you for humoring me.
You're welcome. I figured I'd spare you my hyphenated last name that has every letter in the alphabet.
Does it have a Z?
Almost, a K and a W, so that's basically a Z.
I love it. It's funny, as we were talking, we were thinking back to where we first met, and I can't pin it, but I feel like you've always been there in the background in New York City, working at all these great firms. And I can't go back to the time we first met, but I feel like you've just always been there.
I feel exactly the same. I don't know, maybe it's too many happy hours, but I know whenever we had a need, we would say, call Dan Ryan, you know?
Yeah, and then my name merges into one word, and there we are.
Ryan.
Yes, Ryan, call me Ryan. But it's interesting to find ourselves where we are, like right now at this moment, speaking to each other, because one of the things in the introduction of you that I was drawn to was just your passion for guiding the next generation of designers. And then I don't know if everyone knows this, and I didn't know this really either, but you are an adjunct instructor at, where is that? At the New York School of Interior Design, right?
There you go. Yes.
So like, I'm always curious to like think about how we shorten other people's journeys. A lot of that is by teaching and learning. And so like, how did you get drawn to doing that and working with like the new students coming up? And I want to know more about that.
Well, you know, just to clarify, I took a little bit of a pause from teaching during COVID, but did that for many years. And I'm also connected to my alma mater, SCAD, and working with those students as well. And it's always been important to me. You know, the short answer is I grew up with learning disabilities, and that was the best thing for my career because it made me learn differently than other kids. And the value of visual learning became a premium to my process. And so fast forward 20, 30 years as a professional interior designer, the value on visual learning and that process isn't always taught. So at New York School of Interior Design, I largely work with graduate students. So they're second career folks or international folks. And so the design language isn't always, you know, firsthand to them. So we have to get creative of how we teach them tools that is going to make them successful. So, you know, and you're a parent, and if you've ever coached any team, seeing somebody progress, there's a lot of value in that. That sort of fills up my cup in our hustle and bustle of the industry. That fills me up. That keeps me inspired working with the students.
And it's interesting because it's so true. And until you said it, I didn't realize this, but I've noticed it. For so many people, going into design is a second career. Actually, I was just in Chicago having dinner with a group of people, and the person sitting next to me, this was like her third career. And I'm curious, for the people who are doing that second career and getting into design, is it how many of them learn differently, and then they're finally at the point of their first career, they're just like, oh, I fucking hate this and I want to do something else, and then they start working in design and solving design challenges and problems and working and thinking differently, like backwards, forwards. Like, how many of them just, it's like this light bulb and just glow must come out of them. Is like, oh my God, I found myself. What have I been doing for all these years?
Exactly. I think there's a fear for a lot of people, because there's a stigma against being a creative, that maybe you won't be able to support yourself, or it's too arbitrary or subjective, but really it's not that, especially in interior design and architecture. There's so much science mixed in with design. So if folks are encouraged to take that leap of faith and go back to school, or start off going to design or architecture school, they'll learn that right away. That's very different than a lot of the fine arts. And so when you find that that's what you're passionate about and you're at school, at least I felt this way compared to my earlier studies, it just clicks. You almost feel like the professor is talking directly to your heart and soul, as if for the first time education means something different because you get it instantly. It's like somebody unlocked a door to a part of your brain and your heart and your soul that you didn't have open before. So it's pretty magnificent once you are able to pursue that.
And thank you for like using that metaphor of open heart, because through a lot of these conversations and thinking about what hospitality is, there's this theme of just like being open. And I've heard this idea of open-hearted listening and empathy and all of these things come up to it, but it's really like you have to be open to everything around you and connecting all the dots to create these experiences for other people and to really put others first. And again, I don't want to color your answer here, but for every person that I'm talking to here, I'm asking like, hey, how do you define hospitality? But it kind of all toes around this little gray area of something to do with that. So leading question, I guess, although I feel like I'm not leading you too much, but like, how do you define hospitality?
I think the short answer is hospitality design is designing in 4D when a lot of other market sectors might be designing in 3D. I have the great fortune of working in a large firm, and we execute projects in many different market sectors. And one of the most favorite parts of my job is I get to come in as the hospitality quote unquote guru and bring in that hospitality lens to all of these market types: aviation, workplace, place of worship, healthcare. And I think what does that really mean? I think it just means we want to layer the environment. We want to bring a return on investment that isn't always so measured in a spreadsheet, that there's an instant impact that our guests or our patients feel when they enter these spaces.
That's pretty amazing, because this might be the first time I've heard it said in such a way that, okay, so I talk to designers who work at these big architecture, multidisciplinary firms, and hospitality is a vertical within it. But I find it really interesting that other verticals within your firm are pulling you in to give a hospitality lens. And I think you said healthcare, aviation, worship,
Workplace.
I'm sure there's more, workplace. Okay,
Yeah.
so do they take any of those other disciplines and apply that to other places, or is there something special about hospitality?
Something special about hospitality. I mean, of course, I work in a very collaborative firm, and where we always share resources and knowledge leaders. But hospitality seems to be a unique cat that way. A lot of our clients are also asking for that. Right now, I'm working with 3 of our different offices: San Francisco, Kansas City, and Atlanta, on all workplace projects where the client has said, I want it to look like a hotel. I want it to feel like a spa. I want it to make me believe, or make my clients think that they're at a great restaurant.
Why do they want to do that?
They want to do that because I think it's sort of the undiscovered gem that all of us feel when we go on vacation, right? Hospitality spaces make us or help us aspire to be the best versions of ourselves. whether we're healthier or more present, enjoying the moment, whether we actually grab our gym shoes and go for that trail run that we never have time for, to actually sit down and have a proper meal with our family or our loved ones and not be rushing to the next activity. Hospitality spaces help us savor the moment and therefore, I think, enrich our lives.
So it's interesting because just earlier today, I was talking to a former guest, Aaron Anderson, and he was like, "Oh my God, I listened to this conversation and it's so great." He's like, "Dan, where are you going to take this next? Like, who are you going to talk to? Where are these conversations going to grow to?" And I said, "I don't know. I said I want to do this for 1 year and have these really interesting conversations and learn." But to hear you say that or share that about your client in the workspace, that and using that hospitality lens, that's what it keeps coming up, where I think hospitality, making others feel a certain way, is transferable to everything. So it's almost like, okay, we're in this niche of doing what we're doing, but it applies everywhere.
Mm-hmm. It certainly does. And I think it's a give and a take, even though there's maybe not other market sectors, at least at HOK, informing all other market sectors the way hospitality does. I personally know I've been impacted by working with my colleagues across the board. There is a premium on sustainability and not the green cliche sustainability that many of us think from the 90s, that there is an ethically responsible way to do design work. And we have to talk the talk and walk the walk. And it's not just about getting certain kinds of products in spaces. It's about designing spaces holistically, because human beings spend 90% of their time indoors. So as designers, architects, manufacturers, we have a responsibility to create environments that are not tone deaf, especially to what we've just been through the last 2 years. So the same way we can bring that emotional impact to our colleagues and our colleagues' clients, they're bringing us research, data, measured metrics that enhance the environments from the most ethically approachable way possible. So I think that combination, and if other folks can get on board with that kind of mentality when it comes to design, where as valuable as aesthetics are, that they have to be partnered with true equality and wellness.
So let's say a vertical that is the farthest from hospitality, but it shouldn't be, for instance, I think, because healthcare, I think hospitality and how you make others feel, and healthcare and healing, like, to me, it goes one-on-one. And I don't know why it's starting to kind of figure itself out right now. But let's just say one of your firms, one of your offices somewhere is working on a healthcare project. Mm-hmm. How do you get notified? Like, hey, we want to look at this through the hospitality lens. Like, walk us through, like, what's that process? And then how do you guys collaborate? I'm very intrigued by that.
It's a good question. And this recently happened a few weeks ago. And for us, it starts with, okay, what are the opportunities? Where are the spaces that programmatically need to be efficient? They need to be the workhorse. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We need to prioritize areas of impact. On one particular project, it was a connecting bridge, a passageway, if you will, from one building to the next. This is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to think about that passageway that a patient would have, particularly in a vulnerable time in their life. And let's not just make it a corridor with some access to daylight. Let's think about what that sequence is. 100 feet for somebody who's health challenged, that walk could take them several minutes. So what do they want to see? How do we enlift their spirits? Is it sculpture? Is it artwork? Is it a gradient pattern that lets them know every step along the walk is important? It's not, I know we all say this and I'm guilty of it myself, but it's not always about the final destination. Sometimes it literally is for these patients to savor that walk, every step of that walk. And so when we take the time to design environments that respond to each step there is a receiver on the end that's appreciating that and salivating in that. And so we partner with our colleagues, not that they can't do it, but we try and bring out, like you said, Dan, that emotional component. And we try and drive right to the heart for some of our design solutions. And it also comes down to cultural, appropriation and where is this building? Who is this building serving? Not, the Western culture doesn't always appease all of the patients. So we have to be sensitive to what other cultures respond to in health and wellness and bring that in. And that is synonymous to what we do in hotels all the time, right? We think about the 5-block radius that hotels are in. We think about regional drivers. We think about palette of local cuisine. We think about indigenous plants. And we use that to drum up a narrative for a hotel. It's the same thing for healthcare, right? But now I think there's a higher impact on bringing in those resources. It literally can be life or death.
Yeah, I always find, I totally agree with you. And I always find on the healthcare side, the few times I've been in hospitals, thank goodness, I feel like it's really being restricted by palette, right? A palette of material, and by that color as well. And that there's only so many materials that can withstand these heavy chemicals or blood or just whatever the hell is happening in a hotel at any given moment. But I feel like that palette also is expanding, and maybe in a way, the stuff that or the projects that you're working on in hospitality are helping other manufacturers of those surfaces kind of evolve and kind of broaden their spectrum.
Exactly. And it's a call to our manufacturing friends. Why can't we have beautiful finishes in hospitals?
I don't know.
Right? So, I think that's where we're saying, okay, we have some great options now. Could we have better options?
And I think also, another previous guest I had, he was speaking about as far as how they would design in airports and also into healthcare, designing to reduce anxiety.
Yes.
Right. And it's also, that's totally how you make others feel. So using that bridge as a metaphor, what are some ways that you would help kind of smooth that out and make people feel more at home?
Sure. Well, I think this goes back to the ABCs of hospitality design. I mean, we certainly didn't invent this, but it's been used for many years, where the check-in experience at hotels. Very rarely now do you see a 20, 30 foot long counter barricaded in a wall niche. It doesn't give off the emotional response to a traveler. You don't know if they lost their bags or if their friends couldn't make it on their trip. So the idea in hotels is the second a guest walks in the door, we're supposed to enhance their experience. We're supposed to better their experience. So if we take that furniture pod that allows a reception attendee to walk around, guide the person, even take a journey with them if they need some more one-on-one time, we take that same sort of science into some of these other project typologies, a workplace office, a healthcare or hospital security desk. Even in aviation, there's opportunities once you get through the security lines to create ease. Wayfinding is a great way to do that, and it doesn't have to always be done with signs. Floor patterns, great lighting, and key focal points help to guide the guests, guide the travelers. They will understand, right? We sometimes underestimate how smart our travelers and our guests are. So if we pinpoint them in the right direction, they'll find it, and it will create ease. It will create sort of a shift in their stress levels, because even with not ever being to a particular space, if we can make it feel familiar and comfortable, stress comes down.
Yeah. And it's interesting to also think about, tying that stress that's felt to those people who are starting out on their second career, and then you're, connecting with them. I'm seeing a lot of similarities in that.
Yeah,
And it's making me want to go back to the whole schooling thing. So
sure.
again, where did you grow up again?
I grew up on Long Island.
In Long Island. So how did you wind up going down to Savannah? How did you choose SCAD?
Um, I
I
actually had a
love
pretty
bees. I love bees, by the way.
fellow bee here, yes. And did you know aerodynamically, a bumblebee is not supposed to be able to support their body weight with the span of their wings?
I did not know that.
So that's one of the reasons it is SCAD's mascot, is because it's the little art school that could. This was
Oh,
many, many years ago, but
and that's what
obviously,
drew you to them.
well, not exactly. I mean, I love bees, but in all transparency, I was kind of a jock in high school, and I blew out my knee. And instead of going to school for athletics first, the knee injury presented a rare opportunity. Instead of going to a school that had some kind of art program, um, I then had to literally go back to the drawing board. And SCAD had a wonderful athletic program at the time, not to date myself, but when I was there and I was on the volleyball team. And the coach was originally from New York. And she heard about my injury and she heard about my unique skill set, athletic artist. And she invited me to come on down. And I felt completely at peace in Savannah. And to me, being a New Yorker, it was like a big town.
Yeah.
It was very easy for me to navigate. All the buildings were small scale, maybe 5, 6 stories were the highest back then. And so it felt like, even though I'd be far from home, that it would be a really great town, city to learn in. And furthermore, the class sizes were quite intimate. So remember, I had those learning disabilities. I'm not going to be in a giant university classroom with dozens and dozens or hundreds of kids. I'm now in a 12 or 13 person studio. And that was for most of my SCAD, experience.
And did you play volleyball throughout?
I did. Yes, I did.
And then, so speaking of specialties on the court, what was your specialty? Bump, set, or spike?
I was a bumper. Yes.
Nice.
If you watch any of the Olympics, I was the one with a different color shirt on. They call it libero or libero, depending on where in the world you're from.
I didn't know
And
that.
I'm essentially the ultimate defender. I don't let anything hit the ground, and I'm supposed to just like, here's a metaphor, just like hotels, I'm supposed to, whatever gets thrown at my team, I'm supposed to make it easier for my teammates. So
Smoothing
yep,
out their journeys.
smoothing out their journey so that our setter, aka the quarterback, receives the ball from me. That should be softer and easier than what the opposing team gave us.
Oh, so my daughter is just embarking on her volleyball journey. And I've been bumping, setting, and spiking with her, and it's been super fun.
I'm coming over. Do you have a net in the backyard?
No, but now I feel like I'm going to have to get one.
Yes.
But she's super into it, and I think she's really excited to play. And I don't
It's
know.
a
Wow,
wonderful sport.
I didn't know you did that all through college. That's super great. And would you travel all over as well?
Yes, yes, it was pretty wild. Halfway through my recruiting process, the coach, unfortunately, was no longer with the school. And so a Florida Division II coach came in and sort of took the program to the next level. So when I was starting, we had a new coach. And he treated it like a very high level Division II program. And we went all over the country for matches. So we didn't just stay in the Southeast. He wanted us to get some more points playing against different teams. So we were very lucky. Texas, California, Colorado, Chicago, New York. I mean, we literally spanned the whole country during our season.
Wow.
And it put a premium on time management, because we had about half the time our typical SCAD friends had to do project assignments. And it wasn't like a typical university where you could write a paper on the road. We were doing projects and sponge painting and creating 3D sculptures and house models on the road, in hotel rooms, on buses and airplanes. So it was quite an interesting experience.
Oh, wow. And because you're all art students as well.
Yes.
So you're all, oh, wow.
Yes, all art students. And fun fact, because SCAD draws kids in from all over the country for this kind of specialty program. We didn't have a single girl from the same state on our roster. So when you think about team synergy, right, and how different even an upstate to a downstate program could be, now you're taking 13 girls who are from 13 different states, different parts of the country. To this day, my very best friend was born and raised on a cattle farm. She's a third generation cattle farmer. So, you know, us Long Island girls don't know a whole lot about cattle farming. So that was very, you know, eye-opening and wonderful experience for me at 17, 18 years old.
Wow. And what was it? What was your biggest, like most memorable win that you had on the road?
Oh gosh, I think it was junior year. Our little art school volleyball program that we won the Southeast Florida, Georgia championship. And it was phenomenal. We were like, I'm getting goosebumps now. It was, you know, we had no business winning it 2 years prior, and we just worked our tails off and we won, and we went to the Sweet 16 in California, the NAIA championship tournament the next month. We all missed Thanksgiving at home with our families because we were training and getting ready. And that was just it was like a Rudy Ruettiger experience, if you're familiar with that.
Oh yeah.
Movie.
Except I hate Notre Dame, but I appreciate the reference.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Wow. So you won the Southeast tournament and beat the likes of Georgia and all those other big powerhouses.
And we made it to California, to the Sweet 16. And that was just such a wonderful experience. I mean, I've been on successful teams before, but when you're on successful teams, you know you're supposed to win.
Yeah.
Playing volleyball at SCAD the first 2 years, you know, we weren't supposed to win. We were the art school kids. We would go to other schools and they would chant arts and crafts at us. You know, and we pulled it together because we had laser focus as designers and engineers and architects and fashion designers. And, you know, I don't know how any of us did it, because we never slept more than 4 or 5 hours a night, but we got it done.
Oh my gosh. And when you would go on your big road trips, was it plane or bus?
Mostly actually a combination. It was if we were going all the way to California, of course, primarily plane. But all over the Southeast, it was not uncommon to take 4 or 5 hour road trips.
And have you guys had a reunion of any sort yet?
Not a significant one in many years. We used to have an alumni game, and we used to come back and play the current SCAD team. Sad to say, there's no longer a SCAD volleyball team, so we haven't done that in many years. But some of us are talking about trying to get a reunion together, even just to set up in Forsyth Park with some nets.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, I cannot believe that you guys went that far.
Yes. And then we won it again senior year.
Oh, you did? Oh
and senior year we won it. But then at that point, you know, we were #1 in the region. So it was more expected. But my junior year, when it was not expected, that was the sweetest victory ever.
Oh, wow. And then, so when who did you beat in that final tournament game?
Well, there was 2 big ones. There was one, Embry-Riddle. They are an aviation school. And then, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting, out of Florida. They were, oh my gosh, this is so funny. They were our biggest rival. Something with an A. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting.
Atlantic?
No, they were a smaller school. I might have to
Well,
Google
you can Google it. But the reason why I'm asking is I don't know, it's just so cool to hear about those victories and those tournaments. Like, anything can happen in those tournaments, and to stick it out and make your way all the way through the brackets and then win, that must have been amazing. And then I was thinking, for the other team, to lose to a bunch of artists must have been like devastating to them. Sorry, artists, but I just like, it's amazing.
It's so amazing. And one of another great victory, now you're sparking my my sports brain here, but one of their times was their senior night, and we were at their school on their senior night, and we knocked the snuff out of them, and it was great.
Oh my God. So good.
Is it Armstrong? No. Why am I blanking on this?
Oh, I don't know. I forget more things than I know these days. So it's
Oh,
all good.
Saint Augustine. What the
Oh,
heck is that school in St. Augustine? Now this is going to drive my college teammates are like screaming in my ear right now because these were like our big rival.
oh, good.
Uh,
They'll send you
uh,
some hate mail. When you go into these tournaments or the trophies you get, like, did you have
Flagler, Flagler,
Flagler? Yeah,
Flagler College. Okay,
cool.
forgive me.
So do you have a favorite memento or gear or jersey or like tote bag or something that you got like from any of those tournaments? Like, did you keep anything as a prized possession? T-shirt?
Oh gosh, so many, because when we made it to the Sweet 16, our my junior and senior year, what you do is you get partnered with another team. And because we're NAIA schools, we're from all over the country.
Mhm.
So we're supposed to swap different gifts from the region our school is from. And you do that times 16. So it was a really interesting collection of little knickknacks to come home somewhere. We would bring a lot of saltwater taffy because that's a big thing in Savannah. And so you get all these regional nooks and crannies from everybody. And it was pretty cool to come home from that tournament and say, whether we won or we lost, that we were impacted by so many people from all over the country. Honestly, I think that experience in and of itself, not having a single girl from the same state on our roster, including our coach, nobody was from the same state as our coach or
Wow.
our assistant coach. It was truly 15 different people from 15 different backgrounds coming together.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
then
so
we
cool.
played, yeah. And then we played all of these unique schools in unique places. It really got me out of the Northeast bubble and exposed me to so much. I think that's why I was able to kind of start doing business from a young age with different kinds of folks, because I can then relate, like, oh, okay, they're manufacturing out of Michigan. Okay, I have a great friend who's from Ann Arbor. Let me talk to them about that.
Yeah.
And maybe I only know enough for a 2-minute conversation, but hey, it's 2 more minutes than maybe the next guy or gal next to me. So it gives me an exciting advantage, I think, when bringing all that experience into,
Mm.
present day life.
And have you worked on a project in Savannah?
Funny you should ask. I'm working on one right now. I
So is
can't
it,
I can't talk too much about it, but yeah, it's pretty. I was texting all of my college friends just 2 weeks ago saying, look at this wild, life, and life is coming full circle.
well, hopefully you're going to incorporate saltwater taffy into something or bee stripes or something.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Black,
That's so cool.
black and yellow is still, prized possessions in my wardrobe. And
Oh,
I pull that out when I need to have a good workout.
oh, that's so good. And then I bet you within HOK, because you guys have so many people across all of your different silos. I bet you could cobble together like a Zog Sports volleyball team.
Yes.
I want to see
Yes.
you out there.
Yes. We could do it. We could do it. Yeah. They were actually just asking me about softball here in New York, our New York office. So, and I played many years ago. So yeah, I could probably dust off the old mitt and get out there.
Oh
It's
man, I
fun.
love it.
It's super unique team building. you
Totally.
know Sports is an interesting playing, well, it is a playing field, but it's when you see people in a sports dynamic, I think you can understand a lot about them.
Yeah.
And I think it translates to other areas of their life. So
Well,
that's
that's
always
one of
fun
the
for
reasons
me.
why I want all my kids to play team sports. I always
Yeah.
play team sports because, hey, you might not you're not going odds are you're not going to do it for the rest of your life, but to be able to work together and gel together for a common goal, and to the sting of defeat and the joy of victory and all those things, like it's like life in a microcosm.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. And actually, the coach that first recruited me at SCAD, she said the thing I was almost like dying to hear from somebody, which is, you're not going to get paid to be an athlete, you're a professional athlete. So you need to come to SCAD for school and design first. You need to work on that craft. You've put in all of these hours as a young student athlete, but now it's time to switch that into your craft, because this craft is going to be your career.
Yeah, and it
And that's what,
has.
and that exactly
Boy.
right. So even though at the time it was a devastating fork in the road, it
Mm.
winded up setting me up for a lot of great success in my career, both emotionally, as you're saying, that strife, working through that. And then just figuring it out like 2 o'clock in the morning when the plotter is not working. What am I going to do?
You're
What are
gonna
my options? What are
you're
my
gonna bump
resources?
it.
You're going to bump
You're
it.
gonna bump it. You're gonna save the day and unstuck everybody.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, so with all the excitement of that and kind of where you are now, what like and your whole journey to where you are now, like what, as you look forward, what's exciting you most about what you see in the near future?
Um, it's hard to talk about this question without, acknowledging what this craziness that we've all been through the last 2 years.
Mm.
And even though it's been devastating in some ways, I personally feel that it's a major opportunity for designers, architects, manufacturers. And, this is a little bit, this is a little bit of a grand statement, but I think besides our medical teams and our education forces, I think our design and construction industry has a tremendous opportunity here to respond and create the next wave of buildings and environments that forever change our skylines, and not just in America or in one region, but across the globe. We've got to think better, smarter, more collaborative, to not be tone deaf to what we've all been exposed to. So I'm excited about being, part of the change, part of the solutions that we need to come up with.
Yeah, it's basically like all of humanity, no one is alone. We all went through this crazy sociological
Yes,
experiment, and we're still doing it, but like we were just shocked in so many different ways. But I think as far as architecture and development and design reacting to that crucible we just went through, it's really exciting to think about where it could go, because I
yes,
think, yes, we went through this experiment, but really it's there's a silver lining to everything. That, okay, we learned so much, a lot of it bad, but like, how do we take all that stuff and create more silver linings?
correct, correct.
Hmm.
And I think comes back down to the human response. If you subscribe to the idea that design um, is sort of a response or a medicinal response to a human need, this is, at least probably in most of our generations, this is the biggest cry for that medicinal need that we're going to get. So if we don't muster up the strength to respond now, when are we going to respond?
Totally.
When are we going to reevaluate our processes? And when are we going to reevaluate how we do things, if not now? So to me, that's inspiring, because it's easy to do the same old, same old. It's harder to say, okay, we're going to potentially impact a little bit of efficiency here to think innovatively.
Yeah,
And
and
that's the trade-off we need to be brave enough to do.
yeah, and we almost, we're so fresh, well, we're still in it, but like emerging from this, it's I love that idea of the medicinal response, because that is a source of inspiration. I've always found that, like, okay, we all do things on a spectrum that we hate doing and love doing, right? And as much as we try and stay doing what we love doing the most, oftentimes the things that we hate doing are, okay, we get through them, they're tremendous learning opportunities, but even though we don't like them, they're very informative, and sometimes that stimuli of what we don't like can plot us on a new course as well. And I feel like
Yes.
that's the medicinal response. I love that.
Yes. You're right. The things that we don't like doing are the things that we constantly do. So we either have to have a different approach to it, or like you're saying, learn from it. And maybe there's something we can change about it to like it a little bit better. But
Yeah.
a lot of value comes out of the things that we don't like to do.
A
and
tremendous amount.
taking a different look at things, or just saying, okay, we always do it this way, but is that really a good slogan? Probably not.
No, it's
Just
not a
because,
good slogan.
right. So just because we've all done it this way or that way, which way are we going to do it now?
No, it's the definite. We want to avoid insanity, which is,
Yes.
doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different response.
There you go. There you go. You
Um,
sat in a few leather chairs there, Dan, haven't you?
yes, we have. We have.
Likewise.
And look, I'm all for making mistakes, definitely the first one is always great. The second one, okay. But, by the third or fourth, if it's in the same family, we got to be aware. And mistakes are really how we learn, and failure is unfinished learning. And I'm a big believer in that. So if you could teleport yourself back to Savannah and there you are, you're in your volleyball outfit. It's before a tournament game out in California, and the present you is standing in front of the past you. What advice do you give yourself?
There's so many things I'd want to say. I think for me, there's always been a premium on working really, really, really hard. My dad is an immigrant from Italy. So that's been instilled in me. My mom is the second oldest of 8, and they're both the oldest child. So there's always been a lot of value on working hard, and showing up when the rest of the world isn't showing up. So I think I would just say, work hard, but enjoy it. We're not in a industry that's so sterile that we have this amazing opportunity to wake up every day and be creative. Even on my busiest days, Dan, after all these years and all the responsibilities now, I still get to be creative every day.
Yes.
And that is a luxury.
Well, I also think we all get to be creative every day, but oftentimes we don't take the opportunity to be creative. And oftentimes I find myself being most creative when I want to figure out a way to change a system or a process about something that creates drama over and over, right? It's like, how do we lead ourselves past this? But creativity, to me, is the most important thing. It's what gets me up every day.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what it comes down to, is just, I would say, have fun and enjoy it, because, the hard stuff's going to always be there. I think when I was younger, I used to think, okay, if I work hard enough, this won't seem so stressful, or this won't be hard anymore. But the thing is, there's always another door, and there's always life knocking on it. So it's not that there's not going to be hard stuff and stress. It's just that we have to respond to it differently. And I think that's been valuable for me the last couple of years, given everything that's gone on, to just say, I can't change the world. I can only change my approach to the world.
Right. And especially thinking about all the things going on in the world this day, and these days where it's like, oh my God, it's just so overwhelming. But then I realize, you know what? I might not be able to change this massive, crazy thing that, like, we have elected officials to do. But what's one small thing I can do to build community, or impact a human being that maybe will pay dividends in some other unforeseen way later? But, like, what's the smallest way I can make an impact that would pay big returns?
I agree. And the immediate example that comes to my mind hearing you say that is thinking back to the students that I had the fortune of working with, and knowing some of them are, 5-6 years out now, living a professional design career. And that's so cool that I was a part of that. I was a part of their journey and their bolstering of their own career and their own craft, because as we can see 20 something years later, that's still so important and close to my heart, is talking about SCAD and my education. So I encourage all professionals, even if you can just go to a class presentation and be a guest crit for an hour or two, your impact, your feedback is so impactful. and could brighten somebody's whole day with their project. If you see one thing in their project that they worked so hard on, you can't even imagine how far it goes.
Yeah. And that positive impact's amazing. And then building on that one, if you're talking to some of those students and coaching them, and maybe they're going to come work with you, or they're going to do something else in a different creative field, but as well, maybe more in the silo that you're in. What's the most important kind of strength or personality trait that someone needs to be successful?
I think particularly at a large firm, it's got to be communication. You know, you're not going to know everything. You're not going to be the most talented. You're not going to be the fastest. In a large firm, there's probably always going to be somebody better at all of those things. So if you're a great communicator, you know, hey, I'm stepping out for a minute. Do you need a sandwich? That goes a long way. Even to, hey, I had a family situation. I'll be back later tonight. I'm going to plug back in at this time. You can count on me. That goes a long way. When you're in a client presentation and the lead presenter can't possibly remember every single detail, and you have that specific detail at the tip of your tongue, that wood is $4.95 a square foot. That goes a long way. So I think being that communicator in all facets of being a colleague is tremendously important. You can nurture that and you can bolster that. The rest can be taught. But that, I think, is maybe is an instinct in some people, and it's quite valuable.
Yeah, communicating is just it's getting everyone's intentions aligned and understood. And again, you know, going back to your the bumper, right? And you know, I find that some of the easiest things for us to do, we've been doing this for a long time, is to help others get unstuck, right? Because someone might be stuck over the smallest thing, but it's big to them. But then you're like, oh, have you talked to so-and-so? Have you figured this? And just getting others to tap into our experience to get them to think differently about how they can solve a problem.
Right.
And I think that's also what design, like if you think about design, okay, yeah, you're creating things, you're pulling palettes together, you're whatever, but really it's about solving problems.
Correct.
And I think that with the students that you're teaching as well, I would say, I would ask, how many of them, even though they mostly did art, I'm sure throughout their high school years, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm creative. How many of them actually learned what design is?
The students that I taught, most of them didn't. I mean, they learned economics and, you know, biology. They didn't learn, you know, the in-depths of design vernacular. So it is new to them.
But I would even say that with design, it's not taught as design, but if you have to write a paper on something, you have to think of a thesis. You have to think of how you're going to introduce it. What's the story you're telling? How do you create arguments around it and define what it is? But really, all problem solving is design. And I think that we just need to, I don't know why that's not spoken more. It's really surprising to me.
It's an excellent point, because even present day, you know, colleagues lateral to my experience, you know, more junior to my experience, sometimes when we get into internal team huddles, to your point about somebody just getting to a roadblock and they're challenged with a certain scenario, I say, well, if you're challenged as the designer trying to mastermind this floor plan or this sequence of program, imagine what the user is going to feel. So if we can just say, okay, as the user, how does this feel better, look better, work better? Then that's the solution.
Totally.
It's, you know, sometimes it's not, oh, the client said X, so let's do X. Let's take it a step further. The client said X, but why did they say X? How do we make X better in the plan? How do we make the X better in 3D? So sometimes I completely agree, Dan, when we're working as a team and our teammates are getting stuck, and I have the ability to come in from that aerial view, and it's a little bit quicker for me to see it because I'm not saturated in it all day, every day, and it's not staring at me. I'm able to come in and say something like that. And then all of a sudden it alleviates the
Yeah.
stress.
Fresh
And
eyes, fresh perspective.
fresh perspective. But to my colleagues' defense, they know the answer too. They just need to talk it out. And as humans, we need those touch points. And it's almost like a confidence check.
Yeah.
You've got it. You've got the right answer. You know this doesn't work. You know what feels better. You know what would be more efficient. That's the solution.
This comes up all the time with this one group I'm a part of, and the mantra is we all live in these jars, right? And this is who we are. Like, we see the world, we're in a jar, but oftentimes as we're doing everything we're doing, we can't read the label on our own jar. We need that outside perspective and communication and feedback. Yes. And just also being open to hearing, hey, what are you reading on that label right now?
Yeah, being open to the feedback. That's a big one. Awesome. You know, when I work with my colleagues, you know, in different market sectors, it's always an interesting dance of communication because they're so knowledgeable and they're so well versed in their market sector. And then I come in as a disruptor.
Yeah.
And it's interesting for me. It's interesting for them.
When you're disrupting, are you disrupting you're the hospitality lens disruptor, right? You're changing the focus.
Yes. And so sometimes I have to say things like, well, why can't we introduce this? Or why isn't there a feature stair here to connect these two program elements that need an adjacency?
Because we've used up all of our billable hours.
Yes. Well, there's that, right? But it's sort of like, no, that's 100% part of it. But sometimes it's just like all of us, you know, just, and I'm so guilty of it too. Like, this is how it fits. This is how it works. This is what we're going to do. But can it be better? It's it just full circle, Dan. It goes back to what we've been saying, which is like, just because we've always done it this way, is that really the best way? You know, what do we need to get out of this experience or this room or this building? And is there a better way to do it? So sometimes those processes and those checkpoints become invaluable because we've got to talk it out. It's not going to just get resolved on 2D lines.
Totally.
So it's an interesting, it's always interesting doing those conversations or having those conversations, but I find that we all learn something. Then they share something with me. Well, we can't do X, Y, and Z because of this. And well, okay, valid point. Okay, let's go to this side of the plan.
It's always the communication and being open to giving and receiving the feedback, and then and being open to always changing. Like, one of my core values is adapting and improving. Like, okay, we all have these goals. We all want to win the volleyball tournament. We all want to get that project. We all want to do that. Okay, and then what happens when we do it? It's like you're never there. Then you have to think about where are you going next. And so it's always adjusting and always moving.
Yeah. And, you know, I think I would be remiss to not mention that one of the successful components of the volleyball career at SCAD was because we had a strength and conditioning coach who was a former Marine. And we worked out in a very militant style, 2 to 3 days a week, all year round.
Yeah.
I mean, we would do jumping jacks in complete unison, sit-ups, push-ups. And when we failed at an assignment in the workout, the leaders would have to do physical consequences. And if the leaders failed at verbal cues, the rest of the team would have to do physical consequences. And me and my co-captain would stand there. So the value of communicating, responding to communication, and then melding together as a team, it's just so invaluable to what we all do every day, all day.
Totally.
And that has taken me, as great as the volleyball wins were and being on the court was, I think, you know, my 1% eye-opening experience to military style training, it's part of the craft.
Yeah.
You know, when you hone in on the craft, and most importantly, his name was Coach Carter. He's excellent. He's still at SCAD. He would just teach perseverance. you just cannot give up. There is no giving up. And
Resilience.
and as a leader, you can't do everything yourself. You have to delegate, you have to communicate, and you have to build others to their strengths.
Totally. Again, it's that
So
team. It's bringing up, you're as strong as your weakest link, and it's up to
yes,
everyone to help lift up that person. Because normally it's just the weakest part in a team environment is usually experience, right?
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. But
love
if
it.
it could be experience, it could be confidence.
True. But yeah,
So
and those are probably pretty close bedfellows
yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm,
So, I mean, even we try and get our most, green members talking in meetings and presentations. I think the longer you shield that, the bigger the sort of Mount Everest feeling it becomes, that one day when they finally have to talk in a presentation, it can be overwhelming.
totally.
Everybody gets a voice on our projects, whether it's one sheet or one series of materials. Everybody's contributing, so everybody has a voice.
Hmm,
um, and I think it's quite valuable. It goes back to the idea that there's a premium on communication.
totally agree. And then, so Dina, if people wanted to reach out to you and learn more, how did they get in touch with you?
I would say LinkedIn is the best way. I'm
Great.
usually on there at some point every day.
And then we'll put all the notes in the liner notes, as well, as far as HOK's info and blah blah blah. So we'll get your LinkedIn stuff in there as well.
Perfect.
This has been so awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Dina.
Super fun, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, now Vivian's gonna listen to this and she's like, all right, Dad, let's go out. Gotta hit the ball. So thank you.
I'll
And all of
send you
her
some
friends are gonna
drills.
listen and they're gonna be like, hey, did you practice with your dad today? Oh, great. Awesome.
I
No,
want to
but
see you in action.
oh my God. Yeah, I'll wear my knee pads and my little volleyball shorts. It'll be great. How's that for a vision?
That's quite the vision.
Yeah. Well, hey, also to all of our listeners, I know we're growing every week and it's just so wonderful to have you guys listen and learn. And if we change your idea about how hospitality impacts the built environment and just everyone in general, please pass it along. It's all word of mouth. And so thank you, everyone. And we will see you next time.